But for those of you who manage to get to bed early enough, you're getting a reward in the form of free data. Those of you who manage to get to bed early, you get the formidable team of Peters and Reed who've done their annual number crunching and are here with an incredible deep dive into how all brands that are NOSHy are doing at retail. That's NOSHy TM. How they're doing at retail, where consumers are adapting, and how investment and distribution can help propel brands forward. Please welcome Spin's Kathryn Peters and IRI's Brian Reed.
Awesome.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, Kathryn and I are here to talk about natural organic in the main line. And basically, what we've seen over the last couple of years of looking at information is we've noticed a big difference between a few years ago and just now and how things are working, that kind of like that tipping point. I do a ton of consumer analyses in my work, and I'm just started to, when you put them all together, you realize, oh my gosh, things have changed so much in the last 5 years, yet we don't longitudinally look at things. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at this from a longitudinal perspective. And realistically, we're going to go through things fairly quickly, but all this stuff will be sent to you afterward. The key things that we've got here is the state of the industry. Kathryn's going to take you through a few things like that. I've got some case studies that are really interesting from some bizarro categories that you wouldn't think would be impacted by these trends that Kathryn's talking about, so we'll show those. And then give you some advice on how to build brands, build retail, that kind of stuff, and wrap it up with Q&A. I wanted to mention as well, the data sources we're using threefold. We've got POS information, so movement information from stores, both from Spin's natural channel and the IRI multi-outlet world. Consumer information, which is my passion, so tons and tons of shopper information. And then finally, stuff from the Spin's product intelligence or information to help you understand the key attributes of products and add a lot of richness to the data. So Kathryn's going to start us off with some key industry facts.
Great. So lots of data to keep you awake this morning, right? I promise we try to keep the data a bit light. In case you missed it, natural products continue to grow. I know that's a shocking news. As Brian kind of alluded to earlier, though, for years we've been here at BevNat talking about how this groundswell is coming. I guess really the message, as we all know, is it's now here. So really natural is table stakes. Spins measures every year the size of the brick and mortar world relative to natural and organic, which is this year going to top about 133 billion. And you add e-commerce obviously onto that, which is a much smaller piece, but very much also continuing to grow.
Yeah, it's doubled over the last 8 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, then you look at how it breaks out. So with the Spins attributes, we're able to really characterize different types of products. And you see still only about 10%, a little under 10% of products overall across all of the channels are considered natural, but it certainly is where the growth is happening. Also, I particularly want to note, you see specialty and wellness products. So these are things that are more gourmet or artisan or have a wellness slant, more clean profiles, even if they're not all the way natural. And that's where the secondary growth is coming from. So again, as you think about, Brian and I have been using the analogy of a conveyor belt almost, of things moving from innovation and really core natural over into mainstreaming. And I think these numbers are really playing that out. So think about sort of where your brand fits.
Imagine it's Lucy Ethel on the conveyor belt and it's speeding up and getting faster and faster. That's what this was really looking like.
The conveyor belt's our analogy for our session this morning. So really everyone's buying natural. Now they're buying it for different reasons, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. But I don't know if you know, always scares me household penetration of toilet paper is 99%, and so is natural now. So we have entered the era of toilet paper for whatever that means. But not everybody buys it, again, the same way or necessarily equal. There's some segmentation over here on the right. And certainly the most core shoppers are the ones buying the majority of natural products. But you have many people kind of starting to move more and more over to the left, and they have different reasons for why they're buying.
So it's everybody does it now. It's not just a core few.
That's right. So the three key trends we're really going to talk about that are going to be woven throughout our session today. One is personalization. I want what I want, when I want it, where I want it, and everything else, right? It started with building your own custom jeans or custom Nikes, and now we've seen it really move over in the way we eat, the way we shop, everything we do. So certainly that's a big trend, and without a doubt, Starbucks personifies that whole personalization, right? Craft premiumization. So what's old is becoming new again. And certainly people just don't want to belong to a mass market brand as much as they used to. It's really about, for all of you in the room, this sort of craft and premiumization type of feel.
Yeah, we talked about that as the Etsy of food. And that's really what it kind of boils down to.
It really is. And then mainstreaming, again, it's all just moving faster and faster and faster. And trends are coming into mainstream in a different format because of the fact that everyone now is groundswell and being aware of a lot of these types of products. So let's jump in a little bit more. So, wow. It used to be easy to navigate things like clean ingredient profiles and natural, right? It was natural, it was organic, it was non-GMO, it was kind of one-dimensional. But now what we see is this really complex, interrelated set of things you need to understand to navigate the customer decision. Because you've got, even in two households, you might have someone eating paleo and someone eating plant-based. Well, what does that shopping list look like, right? Or you may end up with someone who's, no sugar, but then wants a different combination of something for their way of eating. So it's more difficult than ever as a marketer to really think, or as a retailer too, think about how you go to shelf and how you really position and you sell your products. In addition, which does actually in a way help to organize it a little bit, we really see food tribes or ways of eating. We tend to not call them diets, by the way, because they really are. They're far more than diets.
They're lifestyles.
It's a lifestyle. It's a full way of eating. That they're really core influencers today in how you create your list or your acceptable set when you want to select what you're going to eat or where you're going to shop. And here's just a few examples: your natural, plant-based, gluten-free, raw, paleo, keto, FODMAP, Whole30. Obviously, it just goes on. And each of these tribes has a different way and a different approach to the products they're looking for. And you have to kind of dig under the one layer down on that to understand how to, with your brand, how to really position yourselves and thinking about what they're seeking or avoiding in a particular lifestyle. Now, in general, these are just some sort of macro trends when you get under sort of looking at the nutrition and the ingredients that overall, but certainly not a one-size-fits-all. There are many exceptions, as we'll look at in a moment. People are avoiding more and more grains and sugars and carbs, and they're looking for a variety of ways with fat, protein, et cetera, to meet their needs. So again, these are all considerations. It's not, you got to just keep peeling back the layers of the onion, so to speak, to think about how you architect your brand to successfully connect with a customer.
And there's also communications of those things as well. There's always the no, I don't have versus the yes, I have a lot of or I'm free of. So negatives can be positioned as positives or negatives depending on how you do it. And it's amazing. Brands can do it both ways and be very successful.
Absolutely. And there's becoming such a need for so many messages today, by the way. If you think about how you position your brand, you've only got so much room on a package. No different than a retailer has only so much room on a shelf. And so one of the things we're going to talk about more is this whole omni-channel or digital meets retail shelf approach, where things definitely are blending and you really need a seamless strategy in how you position everything from your package all the way to your social media, to your website, et cetera. And by the way, of course, this will be posted. So I see some folks taking pictures, but we'll also have this online. We've pulled out some of the top brands. They are the top brands, for food and beverage in terms of dollar growth in the SPINS natural channel. So these are stores like Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Earth Fare, the co-ops, the independent retailers, et cetera. And what really jumps out at you is this whole idea of personalization, right? Look at the different trends and the ways of eating that these brands represent. The different call-outs on them. You certainly see, everything from, again, plant-based all the way to a more animal protein focus. You see the grain-frees, all of them very successful, many of them with a craft approach. You see some that have now been starting to be acquired by larger brands. You see some still independents. It's an interesting tapestry, I think, overall of some of these trends that we're referencing and how one size no longer fits all. I certainly mentioned the fact about earlier around craft premiumization, and some of those brands we just looked at, I think, really bring this out as well, that we need to see and understand where heritage and where small batch and artisanal feel needs to play into your brand. Again, it's not cool to be mass market anymore. There's a real question of it's hard for a mass market brand to create a craft approach. Bon Maman, which again, we're going to talk about a little bit more later, has done a really nice job. This brand's been around a long time, and yet it's really one now that has come into the forefront of what was previously a bit of a tired category. And you can see, I love this. This is their homepage from last week. And you can see it's the whole feeling of cooking in your grandmother's kitchen, right? And connecting with another heritage brand like Bob's Red Mill. I mean, what great positioning for a jam that's been around a really long time, right? And so this is a perfect example, I think, of thinking about how you position your brand that goes far beyond the product itself. That's, again, a headline for today, is it's much more than just the product.
It is.
Continuing on that and starting to think about then how things mainstream. Over on the left, I have to point out again another great example of a craft brand, Epic pork rinds, right? Pork rinds, talk about new made old again. Can't beat that one, especially I'm from the South, as you can probably tell, and pork rinds have been around a long time. This is definitely a new twist. And not only do they do a nice job of, Epic does, of the craft positioning, but also, again, connects to a way of eating, right? There's a whole reason for being with paleo and certain choices around lifestyle. So just a great example. But you can see over the 4 brands on the left, and I think some folks in the room are associated with some of these brands. You know, often things start the edgiest over on the left with new innovation, and they have to spend a lot of time often educating folks on what the awareness, the trends are. But very, very quickly, we see things moving into more everyday natural brands and really building this great approach that's got a very universal appeal. And you can see a lot of growth. More of the growth starts in the natural at the left, but it quickly starts growing as you evolve and more mainstream. And then you can see a brand like Pepsi with Tostitos, just how quickly some of these trends are jumping over. You've gone from Frontera's authentic taqueria, right, a more real feel of an authentic environment, to Mission, who's done a nice job with their tortilla chips, of course, of mainstreaming, but still holding that certain clean profile. And then Tostitos, quickly, not only do they have their flagship Tostitos, but they go to the organic with black bean and the cantina, that's a direct sort of knockoff, so to speak, of the taqueria, and then still with multigrain and then adding red pepper on top of the multigrain. So you can just see how quickly and how these things evolve, and they all win. That's one thing that's really successful.
This is the true conveyor belt, because this thing's going to start moving that way, and another thing will place where the pork rinds is, and it will just keep moving and moving and moving.
It just keeps, one more pops in, right? The old Laverne and Shirley.
It is. It's Lucy and Ethel on the line, or Laverne and Shirley too.
Now this one is really fun with cauliflower. So just 2 years or so ago, hardly Expo West had not occurred yet when we first started seeing, I think, some of the cauliflower crusts popping out. It was this thing on Pinterest that was starting to get passed around. How do we get there? 2 years now later, we've got Oprah and Green Giant with a cauliflower crust. Well, what's really interesting, it becomes, make sure you're a real student of all the trends and think about the unique ways, again, with you as the disruptors in the room, of how you connect things. So take frozen pizza. It's a category that, while there had been some premiumization through the years, it was generally a pretty static category relative to innovation, right? Well, first enter the need for gluten-free diets. Well, all of a sudden flour was bad. Then what happened? Non-GMO. Well, now corn is bad. All right, now I'm following a plant-based lifestyle, and I want more plant-based ways to get my protein, or just other ways of eating, again, that would blend to that. And then, of course, paleo took us all the way grain-free. Well, all of a sudden, what do you do if you want to innovate a category? You combine these trends and you layer them on top of each other, and out pops cauliflower. So it's an amazing study when you think about it. If you say, where did cauliflower come from? Well, there was a roadmap that told us how we got there. And so I challenge you, as you think about your brand, your architecture, your next step of innovation and disruption, is think about how these trends layer, and they'll help you follow a roadmap to where to go next. So certainly we looked a few minutes ago, we saw the tortilla chip example with Pepsi, and what a nice job they have done, in terms of quickly innovating their supply chain to take advantage of these new trends. Another thing, of course, we're seeing, some of the sponsors here at this event, are larger CPGs with incubators and accelerators that are going all in and partnering with brands to build ways to innovate and build further acceleration. And so whether they're partnering with themselves and creating the next big brand, and particularly because it's more than just the product today, it also becomes how you build the persona and the relationship with your customers. It really helps a lot of these brands to get a bigger voice. And then, of course, there's always ways that these big CPGs can further inform some of their own, internal brand work further beyond that as well. The last one here, another case study, is plant-based foods. To me, this is a great example of sort of the two ends of the spectrum. I mean, one here on the left, we see continued trends, continued innovation. We now see where, like, Kite Hill has brought a convenience, grab-and-go, plant-based beverage, yogurt, bringing a lot of things together combined. Of course, I love No Evil with the plant-based there. what we see there is innovative brands keep pushing to the next level, right? These are brands that are continuing to come out with the next thing and the next thing as that conveyor belt goes along, as Brian mentioned. And then on the other end, to juxtapose with that, wow, Ready Whip whipped cream has now gone plant-based. So it's great to see. I think we can safely say plant-based is a trend now that there's a spray can of it, right?
Which used to be a negative for them because they actually had a product that was not made with dairy. And they actually have repositioned that into a positive. Right?
But I think this, again, is as we opened up with saying, natural's coming, the groundswell is coming, this slide tells you it's here, right? And so really it's not always just natural, but it's clean profiles and different lifestyles and personalized ways of eating. And it's definitely here. And so now let's take a look at some case studies.
Yeah, these are fun. These are fun. We took a look at the last 5 or 6 years worth of categories that we do consumer research on, decision tree kind of research, and we found 3 examples that 2 of them were just crazy to me. I didn't realize this was happening until you look at it. One of them is the fruit spreads category that Kathryn was just talking about. In the old fruit spreads category in 2010, there's a group of products for kids, there's a group of products for diabetics, and there's everything else. And everything else was basically sold on, is it Smucker's, is it cheap, or was it something weird? And something weird was, is it funny brands or weird packages or in weird outlets or is it a gifty kind of thing? It was just kind of strange, very niche-y, very small. And the rest of the world was basically, is it cheap or Smucker's? What flavor is it? What size is it? What happened currently is you still have those 2 things on the end. There's still kids stuff, there's still diabetic stuff. But now this entire group of products that is not traditional has become a top-of-mind thing. So the first decision a shopper's making is, am I going to buy Smucker's or private label or something gourmet or different? And then what gourmet or different thing am I going to buy? And you start to see, to Kathryn's point earlier, you've got Smucker's and Welch's natural products for mom who wants to make a natural PB&J for their kids. You've got the all-fruit products that have been around for 1,000 years, but now actually have a real position because they're kind of premium and kind of different and fit the trend of no or low sugar. And then Bon Maman and Trader Joe's, true gourmet brands that are coming into the market and creating a differentiated position. And now, basically, they're squeezing the other part of the market. So you now have these 2 things at the top. The market hasn't grown a lot, but what's going on is the new people who were underserved by the old category are now going to the newer part of the category, and it's pushing the other part toward commoditization. Major brand, Smucker's, is now competing a lot more with private label than it did before because Bon Maman is so different from Smucker's and private label. So you kind of see a shifting marketplace here that's fascinating in a category that you really didn't think anything was going to be happening in. And it's continued to happen throughout the category examples we have. And this is a prime example of what Kathryn was talking about, the branding. It's wonderful to use the example that she brought up. But this is basically, again, from their homepage. But they're talking about time-honored tradition and grandmother's kitchen cabinet ingredients, but they're non-GMO and natural. So now it's grandma had natural stuff. She made jam out of real strawberries and real things. Now you have that at home. And oh, by the way, Bon Maman, the brand name means grandmother in French. It actually is personifying that entire image, even down to packaging. Label looks like a grandma's label. It's got a checkerboard top. It's a little mason jar kind of thing. The entire brand presentation makes you feel crafty about it. And it's actually completely on all of these trends.
And it's amazing because it's been around for a long time, and it was always a niche brand and kind of just sat around in the middle of the category. And now a number of the UPCs are in the top 20, selling in multi-outlet stores. And so, what a great example of a positioning that's super effective and really on point with customers today.
Second example is one I never thought I would see in my life. Talking to you guys about frozen burritos. Okay, the Mexican handheld category was basically low-income and teens for years, and the only considerations people had are how big is the burrito and how cheap is the burrito. Those were the 2 big things. And look at that. There were 2 tiers of price: things that were 50 cents and things that were $1. Like, you're kidding me, right? That's the category. That's the whole thing. What happened was, a lot of people noticed that I eat burritos, but I don't eat the ones from the grocery store. Why not? Well, the whole trends kind of speak to it. There's people who are, all these different tribes that Kathryn was talking about, all of them were underserved by this category. So now you've got a category that has these different components to it that are all doing different things. You've got 2 groups of brands that are very ingredient focused, but Good Foods Made Simple is talking about how easy the deck is to read. Evol is talking about how real the ingredients are. Red's is a phenomenal story. Guy from Austin eating his wife's burrito said, why can't the burritos in the store taste like yours? Why don't we just make yours and see if I can sell them? Just a better burrito. He's like, I was unsatisfied with what was there, so that whole craft, make it myself. You've got the personalized diets, Sweet Earth with vegan and vegetarian options. You've got Udi's and Atkins and low sodium products going in there for special diets. And then Amy's coming in with their entire brand portfolio saying, look, I can make burritos here as well. There's no reason why a 6-year-old who eats organic Amy's across the board would not want a burrito. So all of a sudden, you're like high-income groups, college-educated groups, millennials, people with young kids are now in the category. And it's actually made the category bigger. The category is much broader and bigger than it was today. It's not cannibalizing the category. It's actually changing the nature of the category.
And look at the dollar ring difference.
Yeah.
Look at that dollar ring difference.
It's amazing, $2 to $3. And they've actually added breakfast. Breakfast wasn't in this category before. All of a sudden, breakfast becomes an important component because that's a trend that's out there that these brands can convey.
If this isn't disruption, I don't know what is, right? Really thinking differently.
Now, here's the category we've always talked about a long time, the nutritional snacks. This includes drinks and ready powders and things like that. You've got what's going on in this category. It's reaching critical mass. So this is when this personalization, these trends kind of hit the end of the conveyor belt, what happens? So you've got a $5 billion category here made up of 2 groups of brands. One is very practical. So they talk about the nutrition of the brand, Power Bar, Balance Bar, Lenny and Larry's Quest. It's how many grams of protein. They're about 2.5 billion, up 1% versus a year ago. The other side are emotional brands. They talk about their philosophy, their way of life. How do I build community? So it's Kind, Cliff, Larabar, RX Bar. They're $2 billion, up 14%. So you're seeing this thing, the right side's growing really fast, the left side is kind of staying stagnant. What's happening? On the left, you've got the new brands coming in on the conveyor belt, and they're pushing the old brands out. And you've seen at the bottom, EAS, brand started, one of the starters of the category, got discontinued by Abbott. They stopped making this brand entirely. Now think about that. The brand went so far out of the range of what people needed, it fell off the edge. So what's going to be happening with Power and Balance? They're both much smaller than they used to be and a lot less relevant in this world of practical brands. And what's coming in are different forms. I can do it in a cookie. I can do it with fun. Lenny and Larry's is a very fun brand. You've got endorsements like Gatorade coming in with the athletic endorsements or channels. Premier Protein's coming in with a club angle. They're beating them at club. And you can see it in the data. The newer brands are about 40% of the category, up 14%. The older brands are 60% of the edibles, and they're down 13%. It's a 1-to-1 thing. On the right side, it's a very different picture, and this is sort of the watch out of things to come. You've got 5 big brands on this emotional side, and those 5 brands, if you look at them, they're 1.6 billion of that 2.1 billion. So it's like two-thirds of that sales are those 5 brands, and they're up 14% versus a year ago. Whole bunch of new ideas, really small, and actually declining versus a year ago. What's going on? These big brands have platforms that allow them to do a lot more than basic protein bars. They can serve all of the different tribes inside Kind, because Kind is a brand that means community. So here's my community. I've got a formula for this. I got one for that, one for that. I can take advantage of those trends, and they can actually take a lot of the share of voice and share of shelf from the smaller, unique brands. So in a category where this is starting to mature, these brands are becoming the establishment. And the establishment is no longer big CPG, it's now these guys. And how do you fight these guys who have platforms that are very relevant today? It's a difficult place to be when you're in this kind of environment where this is matured. So last couple slides, basically what does this mean? Brands are becoming democratized. Anybody can build one today. But it's more than just the physical products and the features. You've got to talk about what this brand means. So the physical traits are part of the experience, but who's my product for? What need does it fill? Why is it different from other things out there? And what's my brand's personality? What does it mean? It's a great example to basically imagine all the brands as members at a cocktail party. They're people at a cocktail party. And what does your brand say? What does your brand feel like? How do people perceive them? Well, then you also need to take a role in the stewardship. Where should my product be sold? Why should it be sold there? Why is it a good match for this retailer? What should be different about the execution and the communication between places where I sell it? And what are you going to do to make sure that's successful? And the keys to that is really from B-School branding. This is one of the things that when you work at a big company, these are the things you learn that they do really well, and you can apply this strategy to what you're doing. Basically, figure your brand out from a consumer perspective. Who is this brand for? What do they want and why do they want it? And what's rational about that? What is important about that? What are the benefits to that? And how does this brand behave or act? So if it was a person, what would it be like? And it ladders up to basically your core essence or what you stand for. And once you have this, basically your elevator speech, you can actually filter any new product or any idea through that, make sure it's relevant for your brand. So it's relatively simple, but it's an exercise of branding that makes it key. Your brand is an actual living, breathing thing. What is it?
And certainly, particularly, I think we all get so close to our brands. Make sure you do bring in, whether it's research or just your informal group, to say, not just like, what you think is most important to your brand.
True.
What do your customers say is most important? Going back to relevant and unique, because sometimes we get our own tunnel vision, right? And we don't necessarily think, we think what's the most expensive part of making our product might be the most important part to communicate. It might not be, right? So make sure that you're thinking about what's truly most relevant and unique.
But you're right, that is very research focused, coming from two researchers who came from a lot of background with that consumer stuff. It's really important to have that background, not just your feeling on it, but what do people outside feel about it.
Right. So quickly, I know we're getting short on time. Retail activation. So what do I do here? Well, how do I work with retailers? It really comes back to, again, thinking about brand architecture. And what I mean by that is the retail world has dramatically changed, right? It's no longer as you can once you get your product on the shelf in some certain stores, you know those stores will then be your ambassadors to go communicate with their customers. With everything changing today, personalized ways of eating are the new normal. Everyone cares about what they put in their body, but people want more information than you can get at the shelf. Everything's a click away, right? I can order instantly, I can research instantly. So the retailer mindset is very different today than it necessarily was back when it was a straight brick and mortar game. And so you as a brand, when you connect with retailers, have to also think differently. So retailers themselves are blending that digital and in-store experience. And then on to the next slide. So you need to think the same way in how you partner with your retailers. So one, don't just bring your brand into a retailer, bring a solution to the retailer. Think about how that retailer is connecting with their customers. What's the retailer's brand architecture? Because they're more focused on it themselves than ever before, what they really stand for and how they can connect with these particular customers that we've been talking about throughout this presentation. And think about how your brand connection points fit with your retailers' connection points and capitalize on that intersection. And then also bring a multifaceted approach. Again, don't just bring item price. Don't just get on the shelf. Think about how you're going to bring your brand essence and your brand story to connect with the retailer and bring a much more integrated approach, whether it's you're tying into their loyalty program or you're connecting your craft story into their website somehow. Whatever it is, make it bigger and more. And that's how you're going to win when working and partnering with retail.
When I started in this business, we thought of channels, the mass merchandise channel, right? The grocery channel. Now, you can't say a Publix and a Winn-Dixie are the same. They have completely different philosophies to how they go about their business in the general market world. You can see that from any retailer. Now, they're all very different. So there's some similarities in what they do, but they all have different personalities. So when you go into a Kroger, or you go into a Whole Foods, you're going to have to say different things and do different things with your brand to make it fit into their portfolio. Because each one of those retailers, to Kathryn's point, has the same brand architecture work that you would do on your brand. You've got to match the two up.
So finally, we've been moving along really fast, right? Hopefully everyone's still awake. We know you're going to need more coffee. Quick key points. Again, natural is foundational. It's everywhere. Less is more for today's winning brands, whether it's all the way natural or it's just still more whole food ingredients. Personalization reigns. Make sure you think about where you can't be everything to everyone. So think about how you fit in personalization, craft, mainstreaming.
Oh, sorry. I was listening. I wasn't watching.
Disruption. Gosh, you can either disrupt or probably be disrupted. So if it can happen in frozen burritos, it can happen anywhere. Make sure you're on the disruptor side.
This was my big realization when I looked at this. Oh my God, frozen burritos has the biggest change that I've ever seen. Like, what is going on here?
And
but
frozen
also,
pizzas too. I mean,
but disrupt and be disrupted. There's somebody behind you always. So you have to watch out what's coming next and be nimble.
That's right. Trends are speeding up. We know that chaos is here to stay, so leverage it. Again, you're all the disruptors. Let's leverage it. And then certainly, brand, retailer, both embrace this blurring of digital and in-store experience. And so we leave you with the idea of, really is the era of mass market mass brands really ending because of this ability to democratize building brands today. So think about it. Again, you in the room are the disruptors, and how can you make this your opportunity? Because it's only going to continue to be just a huge window that you all can jump through and achieve. Thank you.
Guys, we don't have any time for questions, but I don't think you left anything out. That was terrific.
We succeeded. We didn't want to let him ask us any questions.
I just want to make one point as we walk off stage, and that is that conveyor belt effect that they were talking about with sort of older brands falling apart.
Are you leading us?
Yeah.
Come on stage.
That's exactly what Matt Gase was talking about yesterday, where you pick some of the weak ones off the pack and you aim for them. And now, now here's Carol.